You are listening to the Justice in Heels podcast with me, your host, Danielle Hayward. Join me as I discuss interesting legal topics with inspiring female legal professionals who paved the way for the rest of us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Justice in Heels podcast. Today, we are joined by Rosa van Niekerk from Rosa van Niekerk Attorneys. Rosa, thank you so much for being here.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. It is an absolute privilege and an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to share all of my stories with you guys tonight.
Okay, so tell our listeners a bit more about yourself. Who are you? What are you passionate about?
Well, firstly, I will have to say, and quote unquote, I put this on record, I'm a daughter of the king. I'm happy, brave, and strong. I'm also your local boerewors pasta because mama is Italian and papa is South African. I'm a practicing attorney for the past 21 years, the owner of Rosa van Niekerk Attorneys that is located in the Western area, and we specialize in family law. Then I've also done a few pageants, and I'm also your current Mrs. Africa Classic 2023.
That's a lot. Like, we can actually write a book about you. And I also told my previous guest, it's so nice to hear that attorneys have passions and interests outside of law.
Oh, absolutely. I believe that, as women, we were not born to be put in a box. And I always tell everybody, I'm going to be that one that breaks the glass ceilings, because people look at me, especially now personally myself, and then because I've been doing pageants for 5 years, they look at me and they think, oh, just a pageant girl, nothing between the ears type of thing. And then they hear that you're an attorney, you've been practicing for 21 years, you specialize in family law. I actually have an honorary doctorate degree from America in humanitarianism. And then they start looking at you a little bit different. So I believe that all of us as women, we are born to stand out and not to fit in, honey, not to fit in.
Amen to that. I totally agree. So today we are speaking about a topic that both Rosa and I are so passionate about, which is domestic violence. So before I ask my first question to Rosa, I think that it's necessary to name that in South Africa, we have a lot of behaviors that fall under domestic violence. It's not only physical abuse. So it can also be emotional abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, economic abuse, or any other controlling behaviors. So my first question to you is, why are you so passionate about domestic violence specifically?
You know what? I am extremely passionate about domestic violence because, and this happened many, many months ago when I attended university to study law in the University of the Free State at that time. I was in a domestic violence relationship myself. It lasted for a period of 3 years, and I was physically, emotionally, and mentally abused. And as a woman, you tend to think that this will never happen to you or never happen to somebody that but it doesn't matter where you come from, your social status, anything like that. It can happen to anybody, and it leaves you with a lot of emotional scars and emotional stuff that you have to deal with at the end of the day. And because I studied law at that time, I promised myself, I would do anything in my power to help any woman that comes to me and she is in a domestic violence relationship. And that is truly what I believe I've been put on this earth for, and what I've been trying to do the past 21 years.
That's so inspiring. So you took your pain, like many women out there, and you turned it into your absolute power.
Yes, for me at that time when I went through that situation, it was very, very difficult. And I actually said to God, but why? Why is this happening to me? And all of that. And now when I look back, I know that my mess became my message. And that is why I can resonate today with a lot of ladies that are going through these situations. Go to safe houses, speak to them, go to high teas, speak wherever. And when you really speak from the heart, your heart touches the other lady or the audience's heart. And then they can resonate to you and resonate with you. And it's so important that we raise a younger generation of women that know that certain behaviors is not on. And, I go to so many schools, I speak there, especially the high schools. And after I've, told my story and, obviously a little bit more detail, I have an open invitation and I tell the ladies, you are our next generation. Please just come if you are in a situation like this, or at home in a situation like this, and come and speak to me. And it is really, really shocking how many of the girls come or contact me afterwards and say that they are in a situation like this. Because myself, I've got 2 daughters, teenage daughters, 14, Rosa and Isabella. She's 17. And to think that teenagers these days are actually in domestic violence relationships, and these things are happening to them. It's not just the older generation anymore. It's really, really shocking. And that is something that we need to bring awareness to our younger and our older generation, that you have rights, you have remedies, you have recourses. You don't have to stay.
Definitely, yeah. And I think a lot of people out there don't even know that they are victims of domestic violence. Um, and I also think that a lot of people have this shame because they feel like, oh, but it's my fault. Like, why? You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, they almost blame themselves and they go into this victim state. And it's so sad to me. But what I wanted to ask you is, how did you get out of your domestic violence relationship all those years back?
You know what? I'm just going to share a little bit of my personal story surrounding that, pertaining to what you have said now. I come from a very small town in the Northern Cape, Uppington, and I was obviously raised in a very strict environment. And when this domestic violence happened to me, I was really physically assaulted a lot. And there was a lot of shame surrounding that. In those days, you didn't speak about it. You didn't tell anybody about it. And obviously, in my circumstances, and I know in a lot of other ladies' circumstances as well, the men will tell you, but you were looking for this. You were looking for me to hit you. It's your fault. And,
Provoked
you
you.
go through a psychological frame of mind that you start questioning yourself. You start saying to yourself, okay, maybe if I was friendlier today, maybe if I did something in another way, he wouldn't have hit me, or he wouldn't have done what he has done. And what we should realize at the end of the day is it's not about yourself as a person. You did nothing to deserve this. It's about the other person. Let's just have a male and a female as an example. It can be turned around as well. But now in my personal circumstances, way back then, obviously it was a male. And you really think to yourself, but what's wrong with yourself? And your self-image, it shatters. And how to get out of it, it's not as easy as saying, and I mean, that time I didn't have children. It was just me and him, a relationship type of thing. It's so difficult. And I think a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is to be in a situation where you are micromanaged, where you are controlled, where you are physically abused, where you are so scared for your life that you rather think to yourself, and in my situation, he told me, if you tell anybody you're going to die, I'll make sure that no other man gets you. So there's a lot of examples that I can give you, but how do you get out of it? Everybody has something in them that they know you have reached your breaking point. And when you reach your breaking point and you have been hit black and blue, you've been to the hospital. I had friends taking me to the hospital. I had neighbors taking me to the hospital. And I always had these excuses. Oh, I fell in the bath. Oh, I stumbled. All of this. There's always, you try to protect that perpetrator at the end of the day, because you are so brainwashed, if I can actually call it brainwashed. But you just reach a stage where you say enough is enough. And one night when he hit me, I literally hit him back. And I said to him, you will never, ever, ever, ever lift your hands for me again. So that the breaking up part then is easy. But then as a woman, you are sitting with all of this. Obviously, if you're in a relationship, stuff happens, and he was unfaithful to me, and he said to me, you know what, if you were more prettier and more thinner, then I wouldn't have done what I would have, what I have done. And with the physical abuse and that emotional and psychological abuse, it really, really breaks you down as a woman. So the question, to answer your question, how do you get out of it? As firstly, you have to decide that you have enough. Everybody has a certain level of pain that they can tolerate. And then you decide it's enough now. I don't care, but I deserve better. And when you realize that you deserve better, then you decide for yourself, okay, I've had enough. And it's then also when the whole situation is then now over, it's not as easy as just pick yourself up and, going on with life as if nothing has happened. I was in therapy for about a year because I also didn't tell my parents. I was too ashamed, to be quite honest. And when they found out, they sent me to therapy, and therapy didn't work for me. I was just sitting there, nothing made sense. And you know how God works, it's amazing. The only thing that clicked for me at the end of the day was the therapist said to me, at that stage, Mrs. Wold was divorcing her husband because he also physically assaulted her, and he also, did a lot of other stuff and he was unfaithful, the whole story that goes with that. And she said to me, if the most beautiful woman in the world can be in such a situation and the man can be unfaithful to her, why can't it happen to any other woman? Why can't it happen to you? And that made perfect sense for me, because she was trying to explain to me the whole time that, it's not your fault. You can't be prettier. You can't be thinner. You can't be whatever. It's something about him. It's something about the perpetrator. He would have done it in any way. There's nothing you could have done better or more to keep this from happening. And that is so important, because everybody speaks about domestic violence, but they never share the personal story, how hard it is to take yourself out of that hole that you literally are in and lift yourself up. And I can only say that it was done by God's grace at the end of the day. And that's why I can now say, if I look back, that mess became my message that I can deliver to women and help women today.
So powerful. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and also sharing your story with us. I think it's going to help a lot of women out there. So what I wanted to ask you is on a bit of a different topic. Yesterday I listened to your life that you had, and you used this beautiful analogy of a little baby girl being born with this invisible crown. Can you just explain that to us and share it with our audience? Because I think it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That is my message of get up, pray up, crown up, and rise up. So years ago, one of the pastors here in our town in Western area, she asked me, Rosa, please come, because I'm a qualified makeup artist as well and the owner of Crown Up Beauty. And she said to me, please come and speak with the ladies about the Christian women and makeup and how do you bring the two together. And I said, yes, no problem. I will do that for you in an instant. And as an attorney, I literally went and I did this whole, you will know, this whole academic piece with research, before and after photos from Cleopatra's time until that date. And that night I prayed to the Lord and I said, God, you know what? I don't feel like what I have is the right message. So just give me the words. And I do that a lot of times when I have to go and speak. I just say, just give me the words. Just speak through me. And the words that I got was, when God creates a beautiful baby girl, he creates her beautiful, he creates her perfect, and he creates her with an invisible crown. But during your life, that crown can fall off if somebody tells you something like you're fat or you're ugly. But when you polish the outside of a woman with makeup, all of the inner beauty, and that is what it's really about, it shines through and she puts back on her God-given invisible crown. And I can tell you that I give makeup classes and I see it in the makeup classes. The before photos, there's no makeup on, nobody wants to smile or pose. And at the end, when the makeup is done, everybody is smiling and posing and, SMSing their husbands, honey, we're going out on a date tonight. And I literally had one husband that phoned me one day. This lady was born without no hair, no eyebrows, nothing. And I taught her how to do or draw your eyebrows with wax. And he phoned me the day after the makeup workshop. And he said to me, you know what? I just want to thank you. You literally gave me my wife back. I have my happy, happy wife again. So you know what? God uses us in so many ways if we are only willing to be open, to be vulnerable, to share. Because sometimes, we always have this perfect image on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all of that. But it's fake. That's why it's called Facebook. It can be called Facebook. So for me, vulnerability and honesty is really important.
Yes, and that's so beautiful. So I think domestic violence is also one of the situations that can really tilt your crown or even make your invisible crown fall off. So we all know that a protection order is the next step for somebody going through domestic violence and who wants to get out of that situation. Can you tell us a bit more? What is a protection order and how do you get one?
Okay, so a protection order is a wonderful mechanism that the law has brought in terms of the Domestic Violence Act. And I am so excited because the Domestic Violence Act has been amended in 2021, and it really has broadened the scope of what falls under domestic violence. It's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, economical abuse, intimidation, harassment, sexual harassment, related person abuse, stalking abuse, damage to property, elderly abuse, coercive behavior, controlling behavior, and exposing a child to domestic violence. So what really happens in practice is the person, the lady, the gentleman, let's just for example sake take a lady. She will come to your office. There's a form that you have to fill in where she gives a statement and says what happens. And then there's also a part where you can ask for economic relief. So let's say the husband, he paid the bills, he was the breadwinner. So you can ask for maintenance there for yourself, for the children. You can ask that he must pay the bond of the house, still buy the groceries. And then there's also an interim order that you get immediately with a return date, where you can say that he's not allowed to contact you, to go to your house, to go to your workplace, to get the help of a third person to come and intimidate you. He's not allowed to stalk you. There's so many remedies, and you get that order immediately, and it gets served by the police on, let's say, the husband then, and then the husband is only allowed to, with the police that accompanies him, come and take his personal belongings. And I always tell my clients, have a copy of that interim order in your purse, in your glove box, in your car, give it to a friend. So if there's contravention of that, you can immediately phone the police, and then let the husband or the perpetrator will get arrested.
Amazing. I think it's also very important to mention that you do not, some people are very afraid of attorneys, and or they are, for some reason, they don't want to visit an attorney, or they want to do this themselves. And this is also a process that you can do them yourself. You can go to court, and the clerk of the court will assist you.
Yes, you can definitely do that, but I will recommend, if the person does not have finances for an attorney, go to legal aid, go to a legal aid clinic, because they just have more knowledge of the law, and they can help you, like in the instance of the economic abuse, to get that order. If you don't fill in that part, you're not going to get that money, you're not going to get that protection, and you're going to suffer. So yes, you can do it on your own, you can go, but the clerks of the court, they are very busy, and they can only help so many people at a time. And please don't be afraid of attorneys. Really, we are actually human, and we are actually very nice.
No, I agree with you there. And also, like, a lot of attorneys actually care about their clients. I almost said patients. They care about their clients, especially attorneys working with family law. I think you have to have so much compassion for other people to actually work in family law. So definitely don't be afraid of attorneys.
No, absolutely not.
What would you say is one of the biggest reasons why people don't want to get protection orders, why they are afraid to get protection orders?
What I can say to you from my literally 21 years in practice is, most people, especially if it's the wife, let's say the male is the breadwinner, then she doesn't have any other form of income. She's a stay-at-home mom. She's got children. He's threatening her, if you leave, you will have no place to go, and I will cut you off for finances. I will kill you. I was literally sitting at court one day, and this lady was not my client. She was just sitting, a few people from me and my client, and she was banged up, black and blue. Her eye was swollen. She looked terrible, and she was telling the prosecutor that she wants to withdraw this case against the male that she opened. And I went to her and I said to her, "Man, listen, I know you're not my client, but I just want to tell you something. Have you looked in the mirror? If he does it to you once, I promise you he's going to do it again. Let me help you. I'll help you for free as well. Please just don't withdraw this domestic violence interdict, the interim order that you have against him." Because a lot of ladies, they are too afraid. They withdraw the orders, then just to come back to court, or they end up dead. That is the reality in South Africa. Every 3 seconds, a woman dies. And domestic violence has a huge, huge, huge impact. It's actually a pandemic in South Africa.
Totally agree with you there. No, and it's getting worse by the day. So let's just speak a bit about who can be victims of domestic violence. So it's not only people who are, for example, in a relationship. It's not only people who are married, Can you perhaps tell us a bit more, like who can be victims?
Well, anybody can be a victim. I've explained, there was amendments to the Domestic Violence Act. A related person, somebody that's just related to you, if they are abusing you, if you are a child, if you are an elderly, the law has literally broadened. It can be between some people, a male and a female that are living together. It can be between males and males living together, or females and females living together. It's not just the old traditional sentence of a male and a female. And I have to say, unfortunately, there's a lot of domestic violence going on against men at this stage in our country as well. But what I see is that, the men they are ashamed. They really don't want to speak openly about this. And this is also something that needs to be addressed, because we have to protect our boy child as well, like we have to protect our girl child. So it can be a minor, it can be somebody that's already an adult, it can be somebody that's in a relationship, it can be a family member. The scope is so broadened. It's literally, you can get a domestic violence order if against your neighbor, if that is the situation that you are in.
Very interesting. So what advice would you have for somebody who has a friend or a family member that's victims of domestic violence? How can they assist them?
I'm speaking now again from my personal experience. Just speak up about it. Women are still very afraid. There's still a stigma about domestic violence and being in a domestic violence relationship. So if you are somebody's friend, a mother, a sister, an aunt, it doesn't matter what the situation is. And you are, we know and we can see when somebody else is in trouble. It can be a co-worker. Just speak to them. Tell them, listen, you have remedies. There is things that you can do. You can go to the law. The law protects mightily women and children these days. Just don't stay silent and stay in that situation. Go to an attorney. Go to court on your own. I mean, there's actually SMS numbers that you can use, and if I can repeat that would be wonderful. The number is 0800 001 005, and then there's also a hotline that you can call, 082 057 8600. So like in my instance, I didn't speak out about it. People literally physically saw it and saw the marks and all of that, but I always had an excuse. I always covered it up, whatever the situation was. But you have, at the end of the day, people that work with you and see, something is not right. You have friends that can see something is not right. So sometimes you just need that push from a friend or somebody that loves you to say that, you know what, I don't have the finances to help you, but I'm here for you. I'm your sister. I've got your back, because it's such a difficult emotional thing to go through, physically and emotionally, that you need a support system. So just speak up. If you're too shy, or, you're too scared to speak up yourself, your friend can call one of these numbers and report it, and the police will go to that address and go and look what's going on.
Definitely. And I think it's definitely our responsibility to not look away when we see or we suspect these type of things. We really need to do something about it. And it doesn't have to be much. Like you said, you don't even have to help financially if you can't. You can just be like a shoulder for that person to cry on, or something like that. There's like so many things that you can actually do to assist them. And I also want to mention there's so many support groups on Facebook private groups, so your friends won't be able to see that you are a member of the group, where people who are victims of domestic violence actually support each other, and you can get legal help there. You can get like help from therapists or coaches, anything like that. So I also want to implore anybody who is going through the situation to please reach out, and we will really see what we can do to assist you. There is help. You are never alone.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. That's amazing. Just reach out. There's always somebody that's willing to help, that's been through it, or know you, and like you say, join a Facebook group, contact somebody. Just know that there's light in the end of the tunnel, and everything will be okay in the end.
So, Rosa, I then want to ask you, do you have an inspiring story from one of your clients? You already shared your amazing story with us, but do you have a story from a client who actually went through something like this and they came out on the other side stronger?
Sure, I've got many stories to tell you about that. Which one will I? Obviously, there's client attorney privilege and confidentiality, but let's just say this lady is called Mrs. X. Mrs. X were married in community of property. Her husband was the main breadwinner. She was looking after the children. There were 2 children. They were actually twins. And I remember that I laid in bed crying about this case like for days, because it emotionally just got to me so much. It was really draining because I could feel what she was going through. So she came to me very afraid. A friend had to come and drop her off because she couldn't use the car of the husband. He couldn't know. We went to court. We got the interim domestic violence order. She got the economic abuse part as well, so she could take care. She could stay in the house. She could take care of herself and the children, and the husband still had to pay. The return date came. She was shaking. She was crying. She was so scared of, this man. And I just told her, you know what? This is the time that you have to rise up for yourself, and you have to rise up for your children. So put back on that crown, literally, put back on your red lipstick, and now you are going to tell your story. And she did, even if it was through shaking and tears and everything. The order was granted, and at the end of the day, she could look after herself. She got divorced. The children were also being looked after. And about a year and a half later, she phoned me the one day and she said to me, you know what, I told you that day that I would never get married again. I said to her, yeah, everybody always says that. And she said to Rosa, I met the most amazing man. He is so amazing towards me. He understands my issues with, domestic violence and what I went through. He's amazing for the children. I'm so glad that I went through this and that you pushed me, because I literally said to her, if you don't do this for yourself, I promise you I'm going to drag you through this court case on your head. I will be that one pushing you and dragging you, but you're going to do this for yourself and for your children. And she said to me, thank you so much for just being there, for giving me that push and giving me that courage. And that's such a special story, and it really touched my heart, because if she stayed in that domestic violence relationship, she would not have met somebody else that God has actually made for her and be happy today.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow. And you must be so proud of her.
I'm so proud of her. I am so proud of every woman that decides that she's got enough, that she's going to rise up. And I always tell my clients this as well. When the going gets tough, just tell yourself, get up, pray up, crown up, and rise up. Even if you don't feel like it, just pray and tell yourself, I've got this, and I'm going to do this for myself or for my children, for myself and my children. And I'm so proud of every woman that decides to speak out, decides to take that step, decides to go through the process. Because honestly, it's not an easy process, but you have to be brave, literally brave to go through that. And then when it's done, to see how they literally transform into happy, beautiful women that literally are wearing their crowns again. I could not be prouder.
That's amazing. So, as this podcast is called Justice and News, I wanted to know whether you have been in a situation before where you were underestimated purely because you are female.
Oh, many times, many times. Yeah, I've got two very interesting stories for you.
Tell
So,
us.
I am a horse rider and I do Western horse riding. And one day I was at court and there was an advocate, a male advocate there. And I just have to say, without prejudice now, not all male colleagues is like that. But this particular person was extremely rude. He tried to bully me. He was disregarding everything that I said, everything that I did. And at the end, the magistrate said, listen, have you tried to settle this case? So just go outside. And he was really trying to intimidate me. And I just looked at him and I said to him, you know what? I ride a 450-kilogram horse and I control it with just my legs. I promise you, you are not going to be a problem.
I really love the
look,
story.
the look on that guy's face, was like his jaw literally dropped. I don't think a woman has ever spoken to him in that way or, treated him in that way. But I normally, colleagues, we are friendly with each other. But this guy, I actually want to use another word for him, but I just said to myself, you know what? Here is the Italian stallion coming, and I'm going to put him in his place. And then the second story that I want to tell you guys, I laugh about this now, and I know that it came from a good place. But just to show you how people put you in a box as a female and as an attorney. And for me, I've done many pageants. I won many crowns by the grace of God. And I had a roundtable discussion for a divorce the one day at my office. And my colleague was a male and he came. We did the roundtable and afterwards it started to rain a lot. So I said to him, can I offer you some coffee? Because you obviously can't drive right now. It was raining and there was hail and all of that. And he said to me, yes, it will be lovely. And we sat and we chatted and everything for a while. And he said to me, can I tell you something? I said, yeah, it's no problem. What do you want to say? He said to me, when I heard that you were the opponent, I stalked you. I'm like, are you serious? He said, yes. And I went on your Facebook, I went on your Instagram, and I saw that you were doing pageants. And then I thought to myself, oh, you know what? She's not going to be a problem. This is a pageant girl. And I looked at him and he said to me, but what I actually want to tell you are really a very, very good attorney. And I'm like, thank you, but why is that surprising to you? And he said to me, because you do pageants. I said, there's nothing wrong with doing pageants. We were made to stand out, not to fit in. And I believe that all of us have talents. And, I will kick open that door and break down that glass ceiling because there's a younger sister coming after me that also, will do a professional job and take part in a pageant. And pageantry is not for stupid ladies these days. It's not just about being pretty. It's about much more what you can do for your community. So I really laughed at this guy, but I know that, it was actually a compliment. It came from a good place. But yeah, that was quite interesting. Let me tell you that.
Really good that you actually do pageants because I think it also allows you to put the spotlight on issues that you are very passionate about and stuff that needs to be addressed, like domestic violence, for example.
Yes, that is why I am doing pageants, because it gives me a platform, it gives me a bigger reach, it gives me a bigger voice. And my platform is domestic violence, and that gives me the opportunity to reach more people, to reach more women, and to spread my message of Crown Up. So it's an amazing platform to have, and also a big responsibility, because you have to do good with your platform. But it's just amazing that you have such a big platform suddenly, that you are standing with your feet in both worlds. But I'm enjoying every moment.
I'm so happy to hear that. So thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. It has been so interesting, and I, for one, have learned a lot from you. So thank you again. Where can our listeners reach you?
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely. It was an absolute privilege, and you can reach me on Facebook, Rosa van Niekerk Attorneys. Also, Rosa van Niekerk, Mrs. Africa Classic 2023. And then on Instagram, I am the spicy Italian, Rosa van Niekerk Casalino. So it's Rosa_van Niekerk_Casalino. And you can follow me there.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Justice in Heels podcast. If you like this episode, we would love for you to share it with your friends on social media and tag us. As this is a legal podcast, here is a quick disclaimer. The views expressed in this podcast are solely the views of the individuals involved and not those of the firms, brands, or anyone else that we are affiliated with.